Welcome back. Welcome back. Your man Diamond K in here, of course. RadioFire.com, the Diamond K Show.com. And there's a lot to get into today for today's show. U.S. troops are scheduled to withdraw in Iraq and Afghanistan by January 2021. That's the announcement that the acting Secretary of Defense, acting, of course, Trump's main weapon is just to have an acting person. But the acting Secretary of Defense, Christopher Miller, announced that the United States is going to withdraw more U.S. troops from Afghanistan and Iraq. They said this is going to happen by January the 15th. So much for not telegraphing things. You remember when Trump said that when he was running. So much for that. They done thrown that to the by the wayside. Made this announcement today. And so it says it's going to reduce the troop levels in Iraq, asserting that the decision fulfills Trump's pledge to bring forces home. America's long wars. Even as Republicans and U.S. allies warn the dangers of withdrawing the troops before conditions are right. Troops have been there for a long time. What exactly was the mission? Is that even clear anymore? Let's listen to Christopher Miller, acting Secretary of Defense, making this announcement today.
I'm Chris Miller, Acting Secretary of Defense, and I'm here today to update you on President Trump's plan to bring the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq to a successful and responsible conclusion, and to bring our brave service members home. From Kabul to Kandahar, and from Mosul to Fallujah, hundreds of thousands of America's finest sons and daughters who selflessly answered the call to serve in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard have brought us to this point. Their efforts and sacrifice will go down in history as epitomizing the strength, commitment, and empathy of a force that is unlike any the world has ever seen. Just last night, I joined Vice President Mike Pence and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Milley, to attend the dignified transfer of 5 American soldiers who perished on duty in the Middle East. This was a somber and humbling moment that reminded us of the tremendous sacrifices made by the men and women of the United States military in service of freedom and security. Our armed forces take an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. They serve not for personal gain, but for the protection and well-being of their fellow Americans and their homeland. They are champions for peace, liberty, and the rule of law, and unrelenting when called upon to defend our people and our values. We owe them and their loved ones an enormous debt of gratitude. This is why I'm enormously blessed and privileged to stand before you today to outline the next phase of our campaign to defeat terrorists who have perpetrated attacks on our homeland, including those who help and harbor them, and to prevent future acts of terrorism against our nation. We owe this moment to the many patriots who made the ultimate sacrifice and their comrades who carry forward their legacy. Together, we have mourned the loss of more than 6,900 American troops who gave their lives in Afghanistan and Iraq. And we will never forget the more than 52,000 who bear the wounds of war and all those who still carry its scars, visible and invisible. In light of these tremendous sacrifices, and with great humility and gratitude to those who came before us, I am formally announcing that we will implement President Trump's orders to continue our repositioning of forces from those two countries. By January 15th, 2001, excuse me, I clearly am thinking of where this started in 2001. By January 15th, 2021, our forces, their size in Afghanistan will be 2,500 troops.
Wait a second. Now, if you notice, he tried to act like that was something he did by mistake. He did that on purpose, making the reference to 2001 and then correcting himself. But nonetheless, let's continue. This is Acting Secretary of Defense Christopher Miller.
Our force size in Iraq will also be 2,500 by that same date. This is consistent with our established plans and strategic objectives, supported by the American people, and does not equate to a change in U.S. policy or objectives. Moreover, this decision by the President is based on continuous engagement with his National Security Cabinet over the past several months, including ongoing discussions with me and my colleagues across the United States government. I have also spoken with our military commanders, and we all will execute this repositioning in a way that protects our fighting men and women, our partners in the intelligence community and diplomatic corps, and our superb allies that are critical to rebuilding Afghan and Iraqi security capabilities and civil society for a lasting peace in troubled lands.
So, against and despite the arguments of senior military officials who are in favor of a slower, more methodical pullout to obviously preserve some of the hard-fought gains, Trump just wants to accelerate the troop withdrawal. Now, I don't think that the troops should have been there. But now that they're there, we have to use a strategy to get them back. And this is clearly something that Trump is just trying to do to, I mean, he's refusing to concede his election loss. Refusing. And why that he thinks that this is the right move, even though it goes against what his military advisors are saying, is beyond me. Let's continue with this.
And just this morning, I spoke with key leaders in Congress, as well as our allies and partners abroad, to update them on these plans in light of our shared approach. We went in together, we adjust together, and when the time is right, we will leave together. One of my calls was to NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg. Another was to Afghanistan's President Ghani, who expresses gratitude for every American service member who has fought for peace and strengthened the long-standing friendship between our countries. President Ghani highlighted the caliber of our troops, which he noted has always been more important than the quantity. We continue to stand with him as his government works toward a negotiated settlement for peace.
So the U.S. will reduce troop levels in Afghanistan from more than 4,500 to 2,500, and in Iraq from 3,000 to 2,500.
Meanwhile, let us remind those who question our resolve or may seek to interfere with this prudent, well-planned, and coordinated transition. The United States Armed Forces remain committed to protecting the safety and security of the American people and supporting our like-minded allies and partners worldwide. If the forces of terror, instability, division, and hate begin a deliberate campaign to disrupt our efforts, we stand ready to apply the capabilities required to thwart them. As a veteran whose life and family was irrevocably changed in the deserts, mountains, and cities of Iraq and Afghanistan, along with the hundreds of thousands of U.S. troops who have fought there and were forever transformed by their experiences, I celebrate this day as we continue the president's consistent progress in completing the mission we began nearly 2 decades ago.
How does this complete the mission? Right? How does this complete the mission? This does not complete the mission. This is 1 week after Christopher Miller took over. Former Defense Secretary Mark Esper was fired by Trump. Miller did not did not say that the drawdown plan had been recommended or was endorsed by General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, or by any other senior military officers.
I want to thank the Afghans and Iraqis who have partnered with us throughout and who now carry the bulk of the fighting to secure their homelands.
The only thing that he did say about this is that military commanders agreed to execute it. Not sure that they had a lot of choice there.
I want to thank our NATO allies and other partners who have fought alongside us and taken the lead on training and advising the Afghan and Iraqi security forces. We will continue to support their efforts.
Okay. All right. Enough of that. All right. So the acting secretary, after he made this announcement, I resist calling it a press conference because he did not take any questions. So after this announcement, the National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien came out to underscore this
ago, President Trump
reduction in troops. And let's go to that.
Today, it's just announced at the Pentagon, President Trump is keeping that promise to the American people. President Trump understood that the way to end those wars was to adopt a peace through strength approach to the world. He rebuilt the American military, which had been decimated by defense sequestration under the Obama administration. He required our allies to step up their game. And America's NATO allies are now spending $400 billion in additional defense spending over the next 10 years. And they've contributed more troops to conflict zones in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. I just finished a phone call with Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg of NATO, and we discussed regional issues. And I thanked him for the alliance's continued contributions to the West's national security and to freedom and security in our overseas missions in countries like Iraq and Afghanistan. President Trump empowered our great armed forces to defeat 100% of the ISIS caliphate. That caliphate was the size of Great Britain, stretching across Syria and Iraq when President Trump took office. And he authorized the daring nighttime raid that brought justice to the founder and cruel leader of ISIS, Bakr Abu al-Baghdadi. Under President Trump, the U.S. military and intelligence services have wiped out most of the al-Qaeda leadership, striking that organization which perpetrated 9/11 in Mali, Yemen, Afghanistan, Syria, and other locales. President Trump's resolve and America's strength has also led to peace in the Middle East. From the historic Abraham Accords to the peace deal with the Taliban that has led to inter-Afghan negotiations, the world is safer because of the Trump administration's policies. Moments ago, Acting Secretary of Defense Miller announced major troop reductions in Afghanistan and in Iraq. Effective January 15, 2021, American troops in both countries will go to 2,500 personnel. Those troops will defend our embassies and the other agencies of the U.S. government doing important work in those countries. They'll enable our American allies in their important missions in those countries. They'll defend our diplomats, and they'll deter our foes. By May, it is President Trump's hope that they will all come home safely and in their entirety. I want to reiterate that this policy is not new. This has been the president's policy since he took office, and it's a policy that I talked about specifically with these numbers at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas in October. So it's appropriate at this time to again thank our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine, and Coast Guardsmen, and especially their families, and especially those families of our fallen heroes and of our wounded warriors. They
You
made
know,
tremendous sacrifices
the
for
the
fight
the
against
thing
terrorism
about
to keep
the
our
thing
country
about
secure.
this is that many people feel like the troops should never have been there. I am one of those people, and I struggle with that. I wish that we had never gone there. This is something that's never ending, something that uh, it has not been a good look. With that being said, the way to end this conflict, first of all, I think that if they were going to make these moves, should not just been this announcement and this whole thing. So Trump, his national security advisor Robert O'Brien, is saying that he hopes that the troops will be home in their entirety, meaning the remaining troops back home in May. That would be a good thing. Although, why did we make this proclamation? The only reason to make this proclamation is because you want some political capital from it. Trump wants to be able to say that he did this. Troops are returning or packing up, whether they are ready or not, to come back home. A lot of people oppose removing these troops. Even some Republicans oppose removing these troops. But the withdrawal is happening regardless, and we're going to see how that's going to go. Is Joe Biden going to turn around and send the troops back? It would appear so, and I don't think that that's a good idea. I mean, this is just a disaster. But the biggest issue here is this is what happens when you have a novice in the office, the most powerful person in the world, who clearly does not listen to advice, clearly does not listen to anything, and only does things to benefit himself. Just tuning in, you listen to the Diamond K Show, of course, radioonfire.com, the diamondkshow.com. I am here weekdays, radioonfire.com. Let's take a quick break, come right back. I think, and I've said this before, one of the main reasons that Donald Trump lost this election was because of the way that he handled the coronavirus pandemic. Yeah, I mean, that's it. Now, Republicans in many states have fallen suit to Trump and his dismissal of the coronavirus. The way that he handles the coronavirus, acknowledging it, not hardly. And unfortunately for the country, many leading Republicans have done the same thing. The latest, the third oldest member of Congress has tested positive for COVID-19, and that is Chuck Grassley. He's an 87-year-old Republican. And I mean, when are these people going to get it? Like, he received his diagnosis after undergoing testing and learned that obviously he was recently exposed to an infected person, according to his office. Could it be, were you at one of the Trump super spreader events, maybe? The lawmaker says that he's feeling good and not experiencing any symptoms as of today. Claims that he's going to be following his doctor's orders / the CDC guidelines. Well, why didn't you do that in the beginning? Why weren't you already doing that? Anyway, he's going to continue to quarantine, and he says that he appreciates everyone's well wishes, prayers, and looks forward to resuming his normal schedule soon. So I definitely hope that he gets well and does that soon. Okay, don't want anybody to be bad off despite the fact that you disagree with them politically. So as we talk about this coronavirus, states are tightening antivirus restrictions. Cases are surging throughout this country. This deadly rise in COVID-19 cases is forcing state and local governments to react. They have to adjust these blueprints. Many states that were, so resistant to actually fighting the virus are now adopting mask mandates. I mean, they're kicking and screaming, but they are, at least in one case, adopting that. Republican governors and schools scrapping plans to reopen classrooms. It is not time for that. It is not time for that. You got in Baltimore, for instance, you have some schools that are opening up, but you can't have fans in the stadiums to see the Ravens games. The governor has outlined all these restrictions, but yet they want to try to open up schools. It's sending a mixed message. And this mixed message that many places are sending is part of the reason why we're having this surge. So, I mean, the steps that you have to take, yes, there are going to be some people that's going to be upset. But I hate the word COVID fatigue. I hate that expression, right? Do we have AIDS fatigue? I mean, if you don't have a cure, you have to take precautions. That's it. Your fatigue be damned. And until there is there's something to fight this. We don't even have anything to fight coronavirus. People talking about they fatigued. They fatigued. Wear a mask. That's what you got to do. People that want to question the science behind wearing a mask. This is a virus. It's an airborne virus. Social distancing is something that has to happen. Now, yes, some of these restrictions are killing off jobs, but if people are dead, what good is your job if you're dead? And the civil liberties, the way that people try to apply the word civil liberties to this virus, it's unreal. Many people clearly don't know the definition of words. In Iowa, Governor Kim Reynolds has pushed back against the mask mandate for months. Oh, no mandate, blah, 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 blah. But however, earlier today, imposed a limited one, but imposed one nonetheless. This is the latest Republican holdout to change course on face coverings. And hopefully these Republicans are going to soon change course on bowing to Donald Trump. But we're going to get to that. At the same time, though, Governor Kim Reynolds claimed that there is science on both sides. It's more that Trump double talk. Science on both sides. There's no science that says that it doesn't work. This is a new virus. It's an airborne virus. So covering your face, you understand why we have this virus surging like this when you have people that clearly go against logic. She claims that there is science on both sides about whether masks reduce the spread of the virus. Masks reduce the spread of the virus. Okay? Governors in Maryland, Governor Larry Hogan, and Governor in Ohio, Mike DeWine, in Illinois, imposed restrictions on business hours and crowd sizes today. Also, their counterparts in Colorado and Wisconsin proposed economic relief packages, which we desperately need. We desperately need this. So it's important These measures of we have to find a way to manage this pandemic because the president clearly is not paying attention. He does not care about that. Hospitalizations, deaths, and cases are skyrocketing. More than 73,000 people. This is an all-time high. Were hospitalized with the virus in the United States as of yesterday, an increase of over 3,000 from just Sunday. So hospitals running out of space. We're starting to get back to the point that we were at in the springtime. Not a good place to be. More than 166,000 newly confirmed infections were reported on Monday. There's science that masks don't work. What are you talking about? The average number of new cases per day has doubled in the past few weeks. Has doubled. This is a serious situation. And I implore everyone, the sound of my voice, you've got to take this seriously. So states are pleading for more help as this virus outbreak worsens. The coronavirus is not slowing down. Shutdowns could be looming. A vaccine months away from wide distribution, other than a whole lot of talk. We're months away from that. So states across this nation are pleading for more help from DC ahead of what's obviously going to be a very bleak winter. So we have renewed restrictions of indoor businesses. It's getting cold, obviously. People are going to want to come indoors, and that's where this virus thrives. We have hospitals overloaded. And the coming end of unemployment benefits for millions of Americans have led many states to really explain how serious the picture is of the next few months. Unless the federal government steps in with more money, that's what it is at the end of the day. They need more money. States need more money. They need a COVID relief bill. Not something that's just sitting there. This is of the utmost importance. So when we see people in Congress sitting around, lollygagging, talking about Trump and foolishness, the American people are what's important right now. American people, businesses, it's just a domino effect. It's a domino effect. Money, leadership, it all goes together. We have a damaged budget, and with this resurgence of the coronavirus, between now and June of 2022, state and local governments could be facing a shortfall of $400 billion or more by some estimates. There are workers and families and farmers and small businesses that are going to need help. These states cannot do it alone. America needs a real federal support system to help our states. How our economy is going to recover? I mean, beyond the federal care funds that expire at the end of 2020, how is this supposed to happen? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, at The Diamond K Show, at Radio on Fire. We are a listener-supported radio and podcast network streaming from our production facilities in Atlanta and Baltimore. We're able to broadcast programs like The Diamond K Show because of our listeners and some amazing partners. Partners like DLifestyleSecrets.com. Are you a baby boomer? Were you born between 1946 and 1964? Well, more than 71 million Americans are baby boomers. And as they continue to get older, the goal is to stay mobile and experience as few aches and pains as possible. DLifestyleSecrets.com helps you do just that. They provide a blueprint to reduce and or eliminate joint pain by teaching its members how to communicate with their bodies naturally. DLifestyleSecrets.com gives baby boomers step-by-step videos, natural recipes, and most importantly, the motivation to re-energize themselves naturally. Visit DLifestyleSecrets.com to join this active community of baby boomers. So it's your man Dominic K in here, and as I'm looking through my social media feed, a lot of people are, talking about the president, talking about the current president, and of course the incoming president. But Donald Trump fired his top cybersecurity official who debunked his false voter fraud claims. His lies about this election have gone on. And the current president asked the country's top cybersecurity official today, via Twitter, of course, in retaliation for the tech whiz debunking his false voter fraud claims in the 2020 election. The 2020 election was the most secure, the safest election, but the outgoing man-child fired the aforementioned Chris Krebs over Twitter. Can you imagine getting fired over social media? That's the way you find out about it. He specifically brought up a statement about the safety of the election, which was issued by the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Agency Director. So Trump says this: the recent statement by Chris Krebs on the security of the 2020 election was highly inaccurate in that there were massive he just goes, I'm not even going to continue this. He goes on and on and on and on. Trump thinks that he knows if it doesn't go his way, then everything is wrong. It's fraud, improprieties, blah, 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 blah. But he says that therefore immediately he's been terminated. So Trump, big and bad, fires somebody via Twitter. Doesn't even have the guts to fire somebody in person. And when the American people have fired him, he wants to come cry, complain, try to have some cases. But the now former cybersecurity head didn't shed any tears. He didn't cry like Trump. He's not filing a lawsuit. After the announcement was tweeted, he said via Twitter as well, "Honored to serve. We did it right. Defend today, secure tomorrow. Hashtag protect 2020." And, I think that is a good, thing to do, a good way to carry it and handle himself. Donald Trump is not the bravest person in the world. That's for damn sure. So Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were briefed by national security experts amid these obstacles with the transition. The president-elect Joe Biden and the vice president-elect Kamala Harris today getting this briefing from some experts in the national security field. Still, Donald Trump refuses to concede, and that's fine. His concession is not required. I mean, it's his legacy, right? But his administration has barred them from viewing classified intelligence. But of course, he worked for the Russians. Trump just might show it to you anyway. So the briefing that we're talking about was conducted in Delaware, and it comes as Biden and Harris look to get up to speed with things. We need the incoming administration to have all of the facts. But Donald Trump, who doesn't even read briefings, is stopping people who actually want to get the briefings from getting them. But I don't think that there's a lot to be feared in this, as Biden has been in the White House before, and a lot of the team around him has been. So I think that it's not going to be like a new administration coming in and most of the people on board don't have any experience. They're going to do the best that they can. And I think that the move of just not making it a big deal, they're not filing any cases, they're not kicking up too much dust, is the best thing. So the General Services Administration, which what they call the GSA, is still refusing to certify them as the victors in this White House race. And this is prohibiting them, members from their transition, from getting this classified information that they're going to get. So that they're going to get this information anyway. So it's just they're prolonging it, and they're going to, of course, when Trump is gone, they're going to say, oh, we're just doing what the president told us to do. We couldn't do anything else. It's going to be all that. But Biden's team said that the readout of the briefings that the experts briefed him on, and Harris, the diplomatic, defense, and intelligence challenges that the administration is going to inherit on day one. And Trump, he's unpredictable, so he could easily make things worse than they already are. But the strategic landscape, as well as readiness and foreign policy and national security, obviously COVID-19, many of these things are going to be issues that the incoming Biden administration is going to have to face and deal with. And I think that they are definitely going to be up to the task. So one person that is really able to get under Trump's skin, so to speak, that is former President Barack Obama. He is out promoting his book that is in stores now. And former President Obama, said to Trump, salvage your last speck of dignity and concede now. This is day number 13 of Donald Trump refusing to accept the reality and concede. If Hillary had done this, oh my God, people would be performing. But over the last almost 2 weeks, Trump has ranted and raved and cried and whined to anybody that would hear it. Completely unfounded claims of voter fraud, talking about he won, which he did not. It's constantly flagged because he's spreading false information, because he did not win anything. He was voted for, but he was ultimately rejected by the majority of America. That's the facts. So that's what he's dealing with. And at no time has Donald Trump won any significant court battles, despite his filing multiple lawsuits. And on Friday, his lawyers dropped a suit in Arizona, despite the fact that he has no chance, and I mean no chance, of overturning the results of the election. He's still carrying on this charade and acting like he's going to have a second term. It's funny. And so it seems like there's nobody in Trump's orbit, nobody that's willing to tell him to cut the crap. Luckily, we have former President Obama. So he's been doing a lot of interviews and working the circuit promoting this book, which is called A Promised Land. He was on 60 Minutes over the weekend. And the 44th president was asked what advice he would give his successor, talking about Trump, obviously. And he said that while a president is a public servant, they are temporary occupants of the office by design. And when your time is up, then it's your job to put country first and think beyond your own ego and your own interest and your own disappointments. Former President Obama continued, my advice to Donald Trump is if you want at this late stage in the game to be remembered as somebody who put country first, it's time for you to do the same thing. So when he was pressed about whether Obama meant conceding, Obama said absolutely. Obama continued, I think it was time for him to concede probably the day after the election or at the latest 2 days after the election. When you look at the numbers objectively, Joe Biden will have won handedly. There is no scenario in which any of these states would turn the other way, and certainly not enough to reverse the outcome of the election. Objectively. Obama's latest book, A Promised Land, is out now. I am definitely going to read that. And I think that many naysayers of Obama are talking about the fact that the size of this book. He has a lot to say. And he is a skilled writer and wants to explain things. There's a lot to say. And a lot of these Republicans that are just used to quick tweet here or quick tweet there, they don't really know how to handle something of the substance that President Obama, because this is just part one of this. There's going to be another part of this book. So this is a series, and very interesting, and salute to him. Pick up that book. I'm sure it's going to be a bestseller. So let's take a quick break. Come back with more of the program after this. And we are back. Your man Dominic K in here, and we're talking about elections and the such. And the Georgia elections chief is battling Republicans. He's battling Trump. Brad Raffensperger is the Secretary of State, and he's on an island all by himself. The flood and the tide is rising. Trump and his allies, of course, are mad and are making lies and unsupported claims that fraud has tainted the presidential election. It's amazing that one of the biggest con men in this country is talking about somebody else and fraud. Trump spent the whole weekend attacking Raffensperger on social media, calling him a so-called Republican, a rhino, which is an acronym for Republican in name only. And Raffensperger pushed back and disputed Trump's claims. And, it has been really, really pitiful when you look at it. The Georgia secretary also called out Doug Collins, who is running Trump's Georgia recount effort. He called him a liar. And he said also that Lindsey Graham, the much hated Lindsey Graham, and he called him out in an apparent effort to pressure him to improperly discard ballots. Graham claims that that's ridiculous, but you know it's true. You know it's true. So the under attack, Raffensperger had some choice words for his naysayers, and let's get to that.
I felt that then Senator Graham implied, for us to audit the envelopes and throw out ballots in counties who had the highest frequency error rate of signatures. And told them that's something that we couldn't do, and so we'll strongly defend, the secrecy of the absentee vote from any source, any party, because we believe that voters need to know that their vote is confidential. They can, holler and scream and stomp their feet all they want, but we have a process in place, and so it's not like I have a choice. And we have to follow the process. I felt that they were coming under pressure from the Trump campaign, and they sent that out there. And I don't know if it was a perfunctory request for my resignation, but I'm not going anywhere.
All right, and he told them. The thing about it is that Raffensperger has been attacked from the left. Now he's being attacked from the right. In 2018, he had some things going on that I didn't agree with in the governor's race under then Secretary of State Brian Kemp. And it is it's interesting seeing now the Republicans attacking him. Of course, we talk about Brian Kemp narrowly winning the governorship over Democrat Stacey Abrams. So this is it's going to get ugly. I mean, it's already ugly, really. Trump and his allies are claiming that Raffensperger did not do enough to root out illegal votes. What does that mean? Votes that were not for Trump. I mean, this is an attack against the republic, our democracy. Trump is a disgrace. Trump is a disgrace. So the Georgia Secretary of State has sought to weather the beating by appeasing some Trump supporters after the Trump campaign asked for a hand recount of all 5 million votes cast in Georgia. Raffensperger chose the presidential election for an audit. I mean, that's bending over backwards, right? And so Georgia law now requires for one statewide race each election cycle to be the audit, and it's 5 million. 5 million votes were cast in Georgia. So the law envisioned just a sample of these votes to be checked in a hand count. But because of the margin in the presidential race being so narrow, Raffensperger said that hand counting all the ballots that were legally cast is the only way to provide confidence in the result. So that's where we are right now with regards to that. And it's a lot of counting by hand. Who bends over backwards this much for a grown man? Talking about Donald Trump. Last thing, Ahmaud Arbery's murder suspect, remember this case, called the DA from the crime scene seeking advice. People may or may not know this, and I wanted to really go over this. One of the suspects in the shooting and in the murder of Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia reportedly called his former boss, who is the local district attorney, from the crime scene. This call was allegedly an attempt to influence and obstruct the investigation, according to a Georgia prosecutor on the case. I mean, have you heard of anything like that? This is outrageous. Murder suspects Gregory and Travis McMichael were reportedly denied bail by a judge last Friday after a 2-day hearing that occurred in South Georgia. So the prosecutor in the case played a voicemail that featured Gregory McMichael directed to his former boss, Jackie Johnson, and asking for advice with the shooting. McMichael said, "Jackie, this is Greg. Could you call me as soon as you possibly can? And you couldn't make out that part. And I have been involved in a shooting and I need some advice right away. Could you please call me as soon as you possibly can? Thanks. Bye." That was the message that this murder suspect left with a district attorney at the murder scene. Outrageous. The prosecutor, Jesse Evans, said the phone call placed by McMichael is evidence and shows from day one that there was an attempt by these defendants to influence and obstruct the investigation of this case. Never have I heard of anything quite like that. Ahmaud Arbery was a 25-year-old Georgia man that was harassed and killed by these two white men, Travis and Greg McMichael. This case is something that's been going on, and it is really time for a change. It's really time for a change. You listen to the Diamond K Show here on Radio on Fire. As always, hit me up on social media at the Diamond K Show, at Radio on Fire. And we have a lot of shows at Radio on Fire. Of course, it is where hip hop and politics meet. I will be back tomorrow. I have a special guest that's going to be joining us, and I will see you guys tomorrow.